What's up, everybody? Welcome to Orange Weekly, presented by Crouse Health. Ooh, let's pull that back a little bit. There we go. How we doing, everybody? What's happening? Happy Thursday. We're back. We're live. We got all the pages on today. We got all the Facebook pages on. So for those of you watching on Facebook, hello, welcome. Those of you watching on Twitter and YouTube, if you're watching live later on YouTube, because we do archive this show, you can watch it on demand, whatever you want, on all the social media channels. We put a post up on syracuse.com as well. However you're taking in the show today, great to be back. Great to be with you. Sorry we missed last week. I was going to do the show last week for our loyal Orange Weekly viewers. For those of you that don't know, we stream live Thursdays at 12 o'clock Eastern time on most of these channels you're watching and on Twitter and YouTube. And Spectrum disagreed. I had no internet for about 6 hours at this time last week. For a minute there, I thought Jim Boeheim went to work for Spectrum in retirement. Anyway, we are back. We're here, and we have got a lot to talk about. So jump right in, friends. I've got a few things I'm going to discuss with you, but as always, your comments, your questions on anything Syracuse sports related, welcome there. There's my guy, Marty, down in Florida, enjoying the sunshine. There's Brian. It's you, me, and a tuna sandwich. Ooh, tuna. I don't know, Brian, not a tuna fan, but hey, you do you, buddy. You do you. So that's what's cool about this show. People hang on their lunch breaks. They watch from all over the place. Marty's enjoying the sunshine. So wherever you're watching from today, tell us where you're watching from. If you drop a comment in there, I always like to see where you guys are checking in from. So got a few things on my mind today. It's actually pretty busy. There's a lot going on here. So what an NBA scout told me about Judah Mintz. As we know, Judah Mintz has entered the testing waters phase. He is going to see what NBA scouts tell him. He has retained college eligibility. He will not hire an agent. So if Judah Mintz wants to come back, he can. Syracuse football, a lot of news there. Pro day on Monday. Matthew Bergeron had a huge day. And I think he could move up into the first round of the upcoming NFL draft, plus spring football is underway. Syracuse women's basketball still cruising, heading to the Big Apple for the WNIT. They're going to take on Columbia tomorrow. Deja Fair is back for Syracuse women's basketball. Huge news there. Huge news. The Syracuse women's lacrosse team, big win last night over Stony Brook. They're now the #1 team in the country. And now you have to maintain that. You got a big old orange target on your back when you're the #1 team in the country. They had a big, big win last night over Stony Brook. So we will discuss all that. And we will also discuss what you guys want to talk about, what you guys want to bring up here, right? So let's do it, baby. Okay. Let's start with Judah Mintz. I'm going to tell you exactly. There's my wife and daughter. Say hello. What a scout told me about Judah Mintz. Let's go to the phone. Ready? So for those of you that have been following along over the years, I have a friend of mine who's a scout in the NBA, and I call him the scout who knows, because he knows. Like, he has been spot on with where Syracuse basketball players project when it comes to the NBA. Right? The guys that test the waters, that leave early, whether they're right or wrong, what people are saying in the NBA about these guys. He scouts a lot of Syracuse players, and he's always given me tremendous feedback. And he's been right most of the time about where these guys will get drafted, should they go or not. And that's why we call him the scout who knows, right? So, of course, we go to the scout who knows for Judah Mintz intel. Here it is. You ready? I'll pull it up for you here. So I asked the scout who knows about Judah Mintz, and I've been asking about him throughout the season, but now especially that he's testing the waters and he's in. Here's what he said, okay? It makes sense for Mintz to test the waters as long as he doesn't sign with an agent so that he can return to school. But I think his play the last few weeks of the season didn't move the needle enough. This is an extremely deep draft. For example, Brent, Terquavion Smith, who at this point is much better than Judah Mintz, NC State guard, who probably should have been the player of the year in the league, but Isaiah Wong, not a bad choice there. But goes on to say, likely a late first round early second round pick. So I doubt that anybody is going to give Judah Mintz a first round guarantee, which would be the only reason to leave for the NBA. Next year's draft is a lot weaker. So if he continues his upward trajectory as he did this year, he could be a late teens, early 20s pick and get the guaranteed money that comes with that. So translation from the scout, who knows? Judah Mintz is going to have a hard time going through the process, and he should go through the process. He should get feedback from NBA people about what to work on in your game, right? Get it directly from the source. Don't get it from people like me that tell you one thing or the other. Get it from people that work in the NBA and can tell you exactly what to do. But there's a guy who is right there, courtside, at games, scouting players, in touch with his team, giving feedback to his team. Syracuse is in his territory, right? So he's looking at it through that lens and has seen Judah Mintz progress through that lens throughout. He's saying next year, too many guards in this draft. Next year, it could almost be like a Tyler Ennis situation. Tyler Ennis found the perfect spot, the perfect draft, and many other drafts probably would not have been a first-round pick. But in the 2014 draft, he was, because it was the perfect spot for him. He had a great season. We all remember the shot against Pittsburgh, of course. But, sometimes timing is everything. And the timing for Judah Mintz does not appear to be right. He certainly has to work on a three-point shot. Look, I am one of the biggest Judah Mintz fans you will find. I love his game. I love his tenacity. I love how he attacks the rim. He got so much better as the season went, became one of the more consistent players in the league. He did not get enough votes for ACC Rookie of the Year. I mean, Kyle Filipowski was always going to win that at Duke. But Judah is a pretty interesting decision to make because you got J.J. Starling coming in, a huge pluck for Adrian Autry out of the transfer portal. Starling was one of the best available transfers, period, let alone the fit for Syracuse, let alone that Autry had recruited him, and he's from Syracuse, right? A lot of things made sense there, but J.J. Starling had a lot of options. But, man, I am drooling thinking about J.J. Starling and Judah Mintz in the same backcourt next year. Joe Girard's got a decision to make. He has not made it public as of yet. As we speak, whether he's coming back or not, he's got a year of eligibility returning. We'll keep an eye on the portal. Jesse Edwards, is he going to move on and pursue a pro career or come back, right? We talked about all this at the end of the season. But that's what an NBA scout said about Judah Mintz, for what it's worth. And I think that's what he's going to hear. So as long as Judah is cool being a second-round pick and you don't get the guaranteed money and you're basically a G League guy, then, hey, God bless you, go do that. Go play pro basketball. People kind of dump on the G League. Like, guys, it's professional basketball. You're one step away from the NBA. It's hard to make the NBA, even the best of the best, right? Cole Swider's having a hell of a run in the G League right now and has been called up to the Lakers a bit. Buddy Boeheim's in the G League for the most part. He's been on the Detroit Pistons roster a little bit as of late. Hasn't played much, but guys, that's professional basketball. So if Judah Mintz thinks he can get picked and thinks he can make a career playing basketball, then God bless him. Go do it. You want to be a first-round pick, you come back next year. I think it's as simple as that. So we'll continue to see how things go on that front, and I'm sure you guys have some comments about that. Nate's watching from Maryland. Thank you for that, Nate. There's Michael Antonio. Players holding schools hostage for NIL money, right? Yeah. Hello, Julie. Nice little smiley emoji there. There's Tawan. Hello, sir. Merritt saying, there you go. I'll just let that sit there, and appreciate all the great feedback from you guys on. I was in the news a little bit last week. I don't know if you saw that, but very much appreciated all the feedback that I got, including some very loyal Orange Weekly and post-game show viewers from you guys. So much appreciated there. Let's stay on basketball. Huge news yesterday for Syracuse women's basketball. Deja Fair's back. That's massive. This team now can have very high expectations next year. Deja's one of the best players in the country. She's the third leading scorer actively in Division I, all ACC, great defensive player. She's an All-America candidate. She's scored 24 points in both of Syracuse's WNIT games. They just missed the tournament. They needed one more win. If they beat NC State in the ACC tournament, they probably would have made the NCAA tournament. Didn't quite get there. Still a hell of a turnaround for Coach Jack and company. It's almost a year to the day, by the way. Coach Jack was hired March 28th last year, like officially introduced as the head coach. And here we are a year later, and they flipped the script. They flipped around the record. They brought in a ton of transfers, Deja being the biggest one. Now, Georgia Woolley and some other players have emerged as some true talents on this team. But Deja coming back is a game changer because now the expectation will be to make the tournament. The expectation will be to compete in the ACC. The expectation will be where you're at now, 20 wins, and we'll see how many more they get here in the WNIT. That's the expectation, and that's fair because you can have a fifth-year talent like that. And I actually just came from a Syracuse women's basketball media availability before they headed down to New York City. And, Deja said she talked to a few WNBA coaches, much like we were talking about with Judah Mintz a moment ago. She put it out there. She did what all these players in her situation and players like Judah do. You listen, you talk, you make an evaluation, right? And her evaluation was, let's run it back. Let's come back one more time and let's go for it here. And I love it. That is very exciting. Positive vibes only, Patrick. Exactly right. Exactly right. So that's big news. That is huge news. So what the women's basketball team has done has made it, how can I put this? They've made the NIT cool again. Can I say that? Like the only time the NIT's ever been cool around here was 2007. Syracuse got screwed. They got left out of the tournament. They should have been in that NCAA tournament. We're talking about the men's team now in 2007. And you got 25,000 pissed off Syracuse fans at the Dome because they got screwed out of the NCAA tournament. It's the only time the NIT's been cool around here. Any other time, the NIT is a failure. It's a disappointment. It's not where you should be. This is really only the second time I can think of where the NIT is, dare I say, exciting, dare I say, a build for next year. And, they're focused on Columbia and they want to win that game tomorrow. It's interesting because you've got the Sweet 16 in the East Regional at Madison Square Garden. 6 miles away is Columbia University, where Syracuse will play Columbia in the WNIT on Friday night. So huge news. All right, maybe I'll get a sip of the frosty beverage here. Absolutely huge news that Deja Fair is coming back. We'll see if Coach Jack brings in another player or two in the portal. You'll probably lose a player or two in the portal. That's just the way college basketball is today. But they're still going. And, it's kind of a pain in the butt to watch these games because it's some streaming thing and you got to subscribe to this. And I wish there was better television coverage of the WNIT. But there's just so much on TV these days. You couldn't even find a spot for that. But they play tomorrow night, 7:00 against Columbia, 25-5 team that can shoot a lot of threes. And that should be an exciting game. But it's all gravy from here for the women's basketball team. It's all about next year and building for next year. And what a jolt. What a jolt that Deja Fair decided to come back, because that is such a game changer for this team. She's one of the best players in the country, flat out. And to know she's coming back next year, absolutely huge. Okay, let's talk some football. A lot of football stuff this week. All 32 NFL teams were at Syracuse Football Pro Day. I've never seen that before. That may be the case in prior pro days. I haven't been to every pro day in recent years, but it's rare that you would have cause for all 32 teams to be a pro day. Now, why were all 32 teams a pro day? The primary reason was Matthew Bergeron. And Matthew Bergeron put on a freaking show on Monday. Wow. Look, we've watched Bergeron play. We know what kind of player he is. It wasn't a surprise to people that watch Syracuse football, right? But now you're doing it in front of NFL scouts. Offensive line coaches, the Buffalo Bills offensive line coach, Aaron Cromer, New York Giants offensive line coach, Bobby Johnson, worked out Bergeron. Now, these things are kind of a dog and pony show, right? You want to see football players play football, not run around in their underwear. But this is what football players do. I just sat through the whole time just like, this thing is so silly, right? But this is what they do. They want to time you in the 40 and they want to do some drills. Most of What we don't see is the important stuff, the interviews, the weightlifting stuff. Garrett Williams, by the way, got up more reps in the weight room. And remember, he's recovering from an ACL injury, but he got up more reps than anybody at the combine. So I think Garrett Williams, who was already going to get picked, really helped his cause there. But Bergeron put on a show, and you could just tell how impressed the scouts were. Andre Schmidt, I don't know if he's going to get picked. Kickers rarely get picked anyway. He's not ranked in the top 10 of kickers. He will be in a camp this summer. Riley Dixon was actually back helping out on pro day for Andre Schmidt. He just signed with the Denver Broncos this week, for those of you that didn't see. The big mystery at pro day was, why didn't Sean Tucker run? I remember Tucker was battling through an injury most of last season. Did not work out at the combine because of what was deemed a medical situation. But it was expected that Sean Tucker was going to do the drills at Syracuse football pro day. He didn't. And no reason was given, just a medical situation. Tucker declined to talk to the media, and his camp's been pretty quiet, pretty tight-lipped as it is. So what's got to happen now is there's it's kind of a mini combine coming up in Indianapolis. Basically, if you were not at the first combine, the big combine, if you will, you have a chance to go back and get medicals done, work out if you can, and basically explain what your situation is. Tucker will be there for that. It's next week. It's coming up pretty soon, next week or two in Indianapolis. But I think you missed a real chance. All 32 teams right there in, the Ensley Center, ready to watch you, ready to do your thing. He's a top 10 running back right now. But what happens is, with these situations, the more mystery there is to these things, particularly if it's a medical situation. And he talked to scouts. He had his opportunity to talk to people, right? This is just, he didn't participate in, as we put it, kind of the dog and pony show that these things can be. But you don't want any mystery surrounding what's happening. So if you're an NFL team, and Tucker was probably going to fall at about the third round anyway, and it's between Tucker and another guy that you know more about, you have more information on, Tucker's going to slide. Now, Tucker's still going to get picked, right? And all told, this is going to be, the draft's still a month away, but this is going to be one of the most successful NFL drafts for Syracuse football in, I don't know, we'll see how many guys get picked, but certainly a decade, right? I think Bergeron could be the highest draft pick for Syracuse. Justin Pugh went in the first round in 2013. He went pretty high. He was 18th in that draft, if I'm not mistaken. I think Bergeron may make his way into the first round. I think Garrett Williams is certainly going to be on the board not too long, probably day two. He's going to get picked in either the second or third round. Tucker will get picked. I don't think Schmidt's going to get picked, but he's going to be in an NFL camp this summer. So Bergeron, Williams, Tucker, definitely. I think Michael Jones has a great opportunity to get picked. I think he had a great pro day. He did not get invited to the combine, which is a little bit of a surprise, but I think he could get picked. So I think you could bet on 3, maybe 4 guys get in there. And as Jim jumps in, how's Thompson looking in practice? See, that's the thing right now, Jim, to transition to what's happening in spring football, as my colleague Emily Leiker has been tracking and wrote about earlier this week. The linebackers are all banged up right now. Marlo Wax is out. Pretty much the entire linebacking crew has green jerseys on, and it's lingering issues from last year. They're being careful. You don't have to practice some of these guys if you don't really have to, but a lot of the linebackers are not playing right now. But next time I go to practice, I didn't have a chance to go today. They had a practice this morning. We'll keep an eye on Thompson and get an update for you on him. He's a great player, of course, when he's ready to go, but unfortunately somebody that suffered an injury last year. Speaking of injuries, Garrett Schrader is not at spring practice. Most of you know that. But for those that don't, he had elbow surgery, right? He was at pro day. He was at practice. He's got a notable brace on his arm that they position it to keep it still, right? So he can recover and not use his arm that much. By all accounts, and of course, what they're going to say publicly is all going to be positive, but I don't think they'd have any reason to spin anything. But, we'll see. By all accounts, it was successful. So now what you have is Justin Lamson, who, remember, had a great spring game, a great spring game. He got hurt, a non-contact knee injury last year. Lamson and Carlos Del Rio Wilson get a lot of reps with the first team. Now, it's a concern to not have your number one quarterback in spring practice. Where I think you can tamper down the concern is obviously Garrett Schrader and Jason Beck are, they're like this, hand in hand. They worked together last year a lot when Beck was the quarterback coach. Beck's going to put his own spin on the offense. Schrader's still there. He's still in the meetings. He's still around, right? But you're losing reps. You're losing rhythm, and you're losing the opportunity to work with what is a receiving core that's got some turnover here. Arande Gatson was lined up at receiver at practice earlier this week, so I think it looks like Beck's going to take him out of that kind of tight end hybrid role he was in. He's going to be back at more of a natural receiver position. I think Beck is, from everything we've heard, the word has been aggressive. I talked to Enrique Cruz earlier this week, and the first word out of his mouth was aggressive when I asked him what changes we would see, if any, between Jason Beck and Robert Anae. LaQuint Allen, who's going to step in for Sean Tucker, I think showed a lot of stuff at the end of last season and in the bowl game. And I think it'd be a great running back here. He's got some big shoes to fill with Sean Tucker, but I think it'd be a great running back here. He used the word aggressive in talking about the offense. So that's encouraging, but still a concern, right? Schrader, it's not his first year. He knows Beck. It'd be a different story, I think, if this was a brand new offensive coordinator and you need every rep you can get going into a season. But he knows Beck. He's in communication with Beck. He knows most of what this offense will be, short of some tweaks that can be worked out over the summer. And, of course, when fall camp comes around. But how about that? Spring football in the air, friends, amongst the other things that we're discussing here. Let's move on to, as Rob notes here, the new offensive line coach seems to tailor made for what Beck hopes to get done here. And let's not forget that. You got Rocky Long, new defensive coordinator. You've got a new offensive line coach. You've got half the staff left last year, right? So you got 5 new coaches that Dino Babers has to get acclimated and get on board with these players and this team and this scheme and kind of accelerate that process as best as you can through spring practice and fall ball. And that's a lot of tinkering to do. That's a lot of coaches that have to kind of get used to these players. They have to get used to them, and you got to streamline it as best as you can. And we'll continue to keep an eye on that. Spring practice goes along here. The spring game is, where's my trusty phone here, just so I get the date right. The Syracuse football spring game, I want to say it's Friday the 21st. And yes, Friday the 21st, 6 o'clock at the JMA Wireless Dome. So we still got about a month away from that. Last night at the Dome, listen, folks, we got us a national championship contender, number 2 in Syracuse, New York. And that is the Syracuse women's lacrosse team. Of course, the men's soccer team won the national championship in the fall. This Syracuse women's lacrosse team is a true blue national championship contender. And the main reason why is Delaney Schweitzer. Now, that's not to take anything away from the multitude of options this team has offensively. Megan Carney had 6 goals last night. Megan Carney has 40 goals already. Her career high is 49. A lot of lacrosse to be played, right? Megan Tyrell is arguably right up there with Izzy Skane at Northwestern, the best player in the country, right? She didn't even score last night, and this team had 16 goals against a good top 5 Stony Brook team, led by Joe Spallina, the father of Syracuse men's lacrosse star Joey Spallina. She didn't even score last night. They had 16 goals. Emma Ward, who may have the fastest shot in the sport, men or women, had 8 points, including 7 assists. Emma Tyrell, 4 goals, 2 assists. The offensive options are everywhere. They come in waves. And there were so many injuries to that team last year that by the time they got to the North Carolinas and the Boston Colleges, the good teams that you play in women's lacrosse, they just didn't have enough firepower to keep up with those teams. And they have that. And knock on wood, the injuries have been manageable so far. They unfortunately lost a key player in Kate Mashevsky, who is their face-off specialist, their draw control specialist. But even last night, you had Olivia Adamson step in. Syracuse wins 21 draws against Stony Brook. But it's Delaney Schweitzer in goal. She made some clutch saves last night. She's getting better as the season goes along. Look, she's not going to win the Tourathon trophy. It's going to be Skane or Megan Tyrell, but put her on the watch list. That was a big snub on the part of the Tourathon watch list. For those who are not familiar, the Tourathon trophy is the Heisman Trophy of lacrosse. They give one to men, one to women. She should be on the watch list at the very least, right? This team's good. It's deep. It's experienced. It's got a great coach, of course, and Kayla Trainer. And giddy up, kids. This team's 10-0, best start in program history. Their upcoming schedule is manageable, to say the least. They get Louisville coming up. They get Virginia coming up. Until they go to North Carolina. North Carolina was the number one team in the country before Syracuse took the top spot this week. North Carolina lost to Boston College this week. And look, in women's college lacrosse, it's Carolina, it's Boston College, it's Maryland, it's Syracuse, it's Northwestern. It's one of those 5 teams. Syracuse has risen above them. It's not a big gap. Remember, Syracuse only beat Northwestern by a goal earlier this year. They'll play again. Syracuse is going to play North Carolina at least twice. They're going to play them in the regular season on April 15th, and they'll meet again in the ACC tournament and probably again in the NCAA tournament. So it's not a secretariat gap that Syracuse has put on the rest of the sport, but they're number one, and they should be number one, and they validated that with that win over Stony Brook last night. So it's March 23rd. There's a lot of lacrosse to be played. Get on board, friends. This is a true national championship contender. They got to stay healthy and all the requisite things you have to say about a team like that, but let's go. Giddy up, and it's going to be fun. They're already a fun team to watch, but they could be championship fun. That's how good they are. As for the men's team, they played St. Bonaventure the other night, and I was there. I covered the game along with my colleague and friend, Emily Liker, and no offense to St. Bonaventure. I love that they're playing Division I men's lacrosse, but that was a mismatch of all mismatches. St. Bonaventure, it's going to be a while before they got the horses to keep up with major programs like Syracuse. 22-6 game. It's a game Syracuse needed. They had lost 4 in a row, got the win over Hofstra. So Syracuse is in this kind of take a breath portion of their schedule on the men's side now. You beat a Hofstra, beat a St. Bonaventure. Hobart's coming up Saturday. There's history there. That's a rivalry game. You never quite just kind of brush them away. But there's a reason in this series that Syracuse has won 33 of 36 Crouse Simmons trophies, which goes to the winner of Hobart and Syracuse, right? This is a Syracuse team that has some scorers, has some talent. Finn Thompson has been great. Joey Spallina has been incredible. He's the leading scorer on the team. And what more can you say about that kid? He's more than put his stamp already on the famous 22 for Syracuse lacrosse. Only more growth for him to come. And he is one of the most exciting players in the country already. Jackson Burtwhistle has been great this year. The face-off X has been iffy. And Johnny Rachuz had a great game against St. Bonaventure. And frankly, I would have had a great game against St. Bonaventure. Okay. That face-off X has to fix itself. Will Mark's been terrific in goal, but when they play good teams, when they play high-level ACC teams, they got number 1 Notre Dame coming up next weekend. Will Mark has seen too much traffic. He's seen too many shots. This is a defense that is still a work in progress. This is a defense that's still got a long way to go. This is a defense that has to prove that it can slow down opposing offenses, limit the quality shots, and it's got to take some pressure off Will Mark. Will Mark's been great, much like Delaney Schweitzer on the women's side. Will Mark has kept this team in a lot of games, but Syracuse's best strategy right now is they just have to outscore people. Well, isn't that the point of the game, Brent, to score more goals than the other team? It is, but you need some defensive stops. And this is just not a team that's capable of consistently stopping people that are on that high level. The Dukes of the world, the Notre Dames of the world, the ace, pretty much the entire ACC, that Syracuse will get another go around with. Virginia, I watched Virginia play Maryland last weekend. It's one of the best lacrosse games I've seen in a long time. And I'm just like, they're not on that level. Now, Syracuse had a great game against Maryland earlier this year. Don't get me wrong. But now that teams have settled in, chemistry's building, they kind of know who they are, they're not on that level defensively. So it's a work in progress. They've already eclipsed the win total from last year. I see a lot of improvement. I see a lot of excitement. I see a lot of potential. But 2023, I think we all knew, was kind of that take the step up the ladder kind of year. I don't think this is going to be an NCAA tournament team. I'd love for them to prove me wrong on that front, but there's a lot of young talent, and I think there's some real growth that we'll see from this team. I can't wait to see him play Notre Dame, just to see, to steal the Judge Smales line. How do you measure yourself against other golfers, right? So we'll see how they measure up against the best teams in the country, because they're coming. But you get another game on Saturday, which they should win, and get some confidence. And there's only 2 home games left on the season before they finish out 4 straight, either on the road or at a neutral site as the season goes along. So a lot of lacrosse in the air. And this lacrosse team is getting better. Finn Thompson, Joey Spallina, Alex Simmons has been great. What I like about this lacrosse team is they're just fun again. It wasn't fun watching this team last year, and it hasn't been fun watching this team in recent years. Put aside, the Chase Scanlon scandal, which just put a huge dark cloud over everything Syracuse lacrosse, not last year, but the year before that. This just hasn't been a fun team to watch. This is Syracuse freaking lacrosse. I want to see behind the backs. I want to see trick shots. I want to see the next air gate. Mikey Powell was just honored at the Dome recently. His 22 went up there to join Gary Gates' 22. I'm not saying we need to see Mike Powell, because he was a once-in-a-generation type talent. But that kind of game, that kind of flair, that kind of energy, that kind of creativity, that seems to be back with Syracuse lacrosse. And I'm excited about that. Jim wants to know, is Petramala not working out? Look, Dave Petramala is one of the best defensive minds in the sport. But Dave Petramala needs defensemen to work with. Syracuse fell way behind in recruiting defensemen, bringing in impact defensemen. Riley Figueres was supposed to make an impact there this year, a freshman. He got hurt, unfortunately. I like Kakemo. I like some of the guys they have, but as a unit, top to bottom, it's not what the offense has. I'll just put it to you that way. And you need another year or two. Billy Dwan's on the roster. He's one of the highly recruited defensemen on this team. Mark's been a godsend for that defense, but I trust Dave Petramala, and I think Petramala just needs some talent to work with. And once you get him some talent to work with at more of a top to bottom consistent level, I think the defense will come around. I do. But for now, at this point, as they're about halfway through the season, believe it or not, I don't project them to be an NCAA tournament team, but I see things coming in the future. It's nice to have the feeling that there's something coming down the road, whereas in the kind of the years leading up to this, they were kind of stuck in neutral, and you were trying to figure out which way is this thing going, right? Well, there you have it, friends. What do you see? What do you say, pardon me, that we wrap up for today? And Michael, appreciate you jumping in there. Good to see you. Appreciate that. Appreciate you coming in, saying hello, and I appreciate all your support out there. I got more messages than I knew what to do with, and it was overwhelming, and I thank you for it. But hey, we're here. I'm still writing for syracuse.com. Go read that stuff. Working on a couple columns for you today that will be coming out in the next couple of days. Orange Weekly, this broadcast here, Thursdays, noon Eastern time live, but you can always watch the show on YouTube or archived on these social media channels you're watching now anytime you want. And look, I'll say this, guys. If I could borrow a line from Pat McAfee, okay, for those of you that are fans of Pat McAfee, if I could borrow a line, it's up to something season, okay? Got some stuff coming for you, but we're going to dot the I's, cross the T's. We're going to figure that out. But still got a lot happening, even before we get to all that other stuff. So thank you for watching. Thank you for our look at this. Thank you, Robbie. I appreciate that. Let's get that hashtag rolling out there. Much appreciated, my friend. But thank you for watching today. Thanks for being a part of the conversation. Great comments and questions. As always, this has been Orange Weekly, presented by our friends at Crouse Health. Always appreciate their support, of course. I knew there was something else I wanted to promote. Sorry. I'm glad I thought of this before we went. Now, I know a lot of you watch the show from all over the place, right? But if you can get to Syracuse, New York on Wednesday, Will to Win, our 2003 Syracuse basketball documentary, premieres at the Landmark Theater Wednesday. It's coming up. Wednesday. This is going to be a great event. We're going to premiere the movie. There's going to be a spectacular Q&A afterwards. There's a VIP section. You can get the details on syracuse.com about, you get access to some players and people associated with the 2003 team. I'm going to be there. Come on. Say hello. Maybe Uncle Brent will buy you a beverage. Okay? Wednesday. So if you are here in Central New York, if you're near Central New York, Will to Win. Guys, this documentary is incredible. Okay? Mike Waters, and I'm going to leave some names out here. Our hardworking syracuse.com crew, Krista Lemazak, Lauren Long, Scott Trimble. Again, I'm going to leave some names out here, but this documentary is great. This is a film. Okay, this is good stuff. This is why I'm so glad that it's premiering at the Landmark Theater, the historic Landmark Theater in downtown Syracuse, Wednesday. You don't want to miss this. Check it out, syracuse.com. You do have to have tickets to get in, okay? So make sure you get your tickets, be a part of the Q&A, and be a part of what's going to be a great event. That's coming up Wednesday. I'm glad we thought of that before we went. Okay, now we'll say goodbye for now. This is Orange Weekly, presented by Crouse Health. My name is Brent Axe. We'll talk to you guys next time. Have a great weekend, okay?